Before Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig, there was Bibble. For anyone assigned female at birth who grew up in the 2000s, there was one blonde woman who was always a fairy or a princess. And that was Barbie. She never had a dream house, and Ken never had a Mojo Dojo Casa house. The two were being whimsical, I tell you, which explains my outfit, minus the blonde hair. I should have filmed this video before I dyed my hair. Barbie was absolutely magical, but they're not anymore. It's baffling because 2000s Barbie defined a generation of femininity. It's an era that has not returned in a long time. I see a lot of people talking about it. I want it back because I miss the old Barbie movies. 2000s Barbie was the golden age of high fantasy storytelling. It's iconic and it needs to return in some form. The Barbie movie golden age featured 16 movies of varying quality, I will admit. I shall start by briefly talking about each movie and my opinion on them. The Nutcracker. I didn't watch this one in my childhood because my video store sadly never had it available for me, which is very surprising that I didn't watch it considering I used to do ballet. But it makes sense as to why Barbie movies became such a successful franchise because this was a very strong start. Rapunzel was one of the few Barbie movies that I owned and watched over and over again. Even in some of my teeny years, it was a comfort movie for me. It's the first one to have dragons in it. One of the few times in my youth that I actually liked dragons. I watched Swan Lake before I started school on rent, so I didn't really have much of an idea of what it was about, so I had to go back and watch it for the sake of this video, and I can see why I didn't remember it. It's a very safe movie. I didn't expect them to expand the plot in the ways that they did, and the dancing was filmed very nicely, but it's still not that great plot-wise to me. Who isn't a Barbie fan that uses The Prince and the Pauper as their Bible? It's a cinematic masterpiece, the first musical so wonderfully written and told, with the best villain that Barbie has ever created. This is the magnum opus of Barbie and everything under the Barbie brand. If anything made me obsess over fairies, it was Barbie Fairytopia, the first fully original tale created by the franchise. And you know it's good, as it's the first trilogy. There is a reason that we love Bibble. It's because we love this movie. We love Alina, we love Azura, Dandelion, Nalu. Hell, even Laverna, she is so iconically performed. Magica Pegasus I watched for the first time ever for this video, which is weird because I had owned the dress and the doll from the movie. The only Barbie princess doll I ever owned. I rated this one pretty high in my books, not as high as my comfort movies, but it was still pretty good. I like how much more defined and sassy Barbie was in this one. Sassy Barbie is a great Barbie. Mermaidia was the first Barbie sequel, part of the Fairytopia franchise, and a perfect sequel at that. I'd say that this is near perfect. It exceeds the original, minus wanting more of a presence from Laverna. More hot Bibble antics, Nalu and Nori, and such a tight storyline and script. We're not talking about the Barbie Diaries, this does not count towards the golden age, it is not fantasy, it's the only contemporary, and I'm here to talk about the fantasy movies only. Mattel knew what we wanted after the Barbie Diaries pivot and brought us the 12 Dancing Princesses. This one I rented and watched a lot. Plus it's another ballet movie. The stories were tight, the songs and the dancing was absolutely great, and the main music theme of this movie is one of the most iconic Barbie songs ever. Yes, more iconic than What Was I Made For. Magic of the Rainbow is the third Fairytopia movie and arguably the weakest, but it still had some nice and decent moments in there. A lot of fun world building, a pretty solid storyline, and a fun ensemble cast. I am personally a fan of Lumina the Moon Fairy and Fabian, but we can call him number one. The Island Princess is the second Barbie musical and is a very fun one at that. The lullaby song slaps. I Need to Know slaps. But I'm also wondering if my memories of this movie were skewed by the Wii game, the Nintendo Wii game that I had of this movie growing up. The plot itself has unique aspects to it, with the poisoning plotline and Ro trying to prove that she's innocent. I think in the classic era, this is the weakest of the musicals. Barbie Mariposa, which is sort of a Fairytopia spin-off, I've probably seen around 3 times. This obviously isn't as strong as the Fairytopia movies, but I would not call it bad. The Fairytopia franchise as a whole has beautiful world-building prowess. Plus, I'm a sucker for butterflies. Look, I even have the butterfly necklace. Someone thought that I got this because of Fairytopia, but this was a gift from my dad. The Diamond Castle I've only seen in its entirety once, but I remembered a lot of it and I quite liked it. I had to re-watch some of the clips from it just to be sure, and I was sure. It's great. There are some minor tonal differences, but not enough to make me unhappy. I enjoyed the movie's tone, direction, and the cottagecore lesbian themes. Barbie Christmas Carol is the second best Christmas Carol adaptation ever. That's because Muppets Christmas Carol exists. I personally like the way that they twisted the movie to make it have a PG or a G rating, and to make it more relevant to somebody who was young and feminine. For me, among the lessons is not warranting a tragic past as a reason to make others' lives miserable. Thumbelina is what I call the killer of the Golden Age. Why? It's the first urban fantasy Barbie, and it was not told well at all. There's nothing wrong with an urban fantasy story, but this somehow, even though it has magical elements to it, just feels the least magical thing ever. It felt so hollow to just try and push an environmental message by putting a fairy tale title on it, because it's nothing like the actual Thumbelina tale. And that kind of disappoints me. It lost all of its whimsy. I watched The Three Musketeers for the first time in this video, sort of hoping that we would get out of this slump, but we didn't. I watched it for like 20 minutes and I knew that we were well and truly out of the golden age by this movie. It was the Alanis Morissette copycat songs playing in a non-diegetic way. It was that Barbie's only personality trait was that she wanted to be a musketeer and she was proud for wanting to be that. It was too girl boss, and the feminism in the first 20 minutes alone was too outward for me to be able to tolerate it. This was also when Barbie's eyes were getting too big on her face for comfort. And I haven't watched any newer Barbie animated movies ever since, and I don't really plan to. Furthermore, animated Barbie content from then just became more and more modern and less magical. We've gone from the childhood fantasy of wanting to be a princess or a fairy to the millennial fantasy of home ownership. So why do we love the original Barbie movies as a whole? Why are these 2000s movies the Gen Z staples and not the more modern ones? What did Barbie do to alter our brain chemistry in such ways? There are several explanations which I'm gonna go through that are more than just childhood nostalgia. So let's dive in. The market. Barbie movies were a staple for growing up female in the early 2000s. This was largely because there was a gap in the market during the 2000s for animated films starring female main characters. DreamWorks' first female lead was in collaboration with Aardman Studios with Chicken Run in 2000, and they didn't have another female lead until 2009 with Monsters vs. Aliens. Disney, Pixar, and its other partners in animation only had 4 movies featuring female protagonists in the entire decade. The first being Lilo and Stitch in 2002, and the last being The Princess and the Frog in 2009. This is baffling considering they are known for having female leads in Disney princesses. There was only one Disney princess that entire decade, being Tiana. But when those princesses disappeared, Barbie came to fill the void. They likely started with princess stories to copy what Disney was doing, and they were also selecting stories in the market that Disney had not yet adapted. They filled a niche gap in the market, and up until 2010, they built a princess empire of their own. Barbie was able to dominate the direct-to-DVD fantasy stories for girls in this time, with their pink DVD cases standing out beautifully all in a row against a mishmashy sea of other colors. There was a time back when my hometown still had a DVD rental store that I would always get Barbie movies from the rental store, and later Bratz, but we're focusing on Barbie right now. Aside from the brand being shoved in my face through toys, it was the most female lead thing that you could find for young girls. This was during a time when I refused to have a male favorite character from any kind of franchise, movie, book, or whatever. But it's okay, I'm past that stage now. With how much princesses and Barbie are interlinked, I was very disappointed that there was not a single princess in the Barbie movie directed by Greta Gerwig. Not one Barbie was in a ball gown. Not one of them did ballet. Not one of them was in fairy wings. The closest we got was mermaids and John Cena being a mermaid, which that was kind of cool, but it wasn't what I wanted. I felt robbed when I saw that Barbie movie. The messages. Barbie has held anti-feminist criticism for so long by creating a fashion doll. A doll that, in theory, covers traditional feminine practices. It was a no-brainer for them to shift their values and make sure those values were presented through movie formats. Through movies that had positive messages that parents would enjoy while still keeping intact with the femininity. And most importantly, they were clear messages where you didn't have to shout about girl power. This is a critique that I mentioned with the later movies, especially Three Musketeers, about how outward they were with girl power. I am not usually a fan of in-your-face feminism like that. And in the 2010s, every movie studio you could think of had to have at least one movie that was in your face, girl power. These felt like hollow, signposted pieces of feminism that were being treated as revolutionary in spite of being the bare minimum. Like, you remember how Disney boasted about Moana being the first Disney princess to not have a romance story? So many other movie studios outside of that sphere beat them to that punchline. It is never revolutionary to say that. We are being feminist because we're doing this. It's not. The old Barbie movies were above bare minimum. While signposting may sometimes seem necessary for younger audiences, a lot of the Barbie movies didn't need to do that. They were able to show instead of tell these important messages. We constantly see women in power in several ways. Queens being the main monarchs in Princess and the Pauper, Swan Lake, Fairytopia, and Mariposa. Powerful magic users in heroic and villainous roles. Main villains being females as well. And so many ways, of course, to pass the Bechdel test. Barbie, when they adapted a classic tale, consistently managed to switch things within it to make it for a female lead character and have feminine relating messages. For instance, Swan Lake and 12 Dancing Princesses are both told from the perspective of a male protagonist. They ended up being swapped and adapted to instead be told from Odette and Genevieve's point of view. Furthermore, Christmas in the Carol and Princess and the Pauper, both tales that had males as the main characters, they got gender swapped, but not just by their gender, by also their status in society as well. And the story was thus changed to reflect that better. That's showing, not telling. And why I didn't watch the Three Musketeers for a very long time. Because even in the trailers, the feminism was so signposted that it was almost sickly for me back when I was 10 years old. Barbie didn't need to be a girl boss and to have her feminism signposted to be a strong female figure for people to look up to within these Barbie movies. And my parents seemed to find these a good influence as well, as they allowed me to continue to rent these movies too. This was also coming from me being a kid who had a lot of the content that I was allowed to watch on my own. It had to be moderated. I wasn't sure if it was because they were aware of things being age appropriate for me, or if it was because I tried to watch The Lion King by myself and I broke the DVD while trying to get it out of the case. But with any case, as I am not a parent and don't interact with children much in my life anymore, I do not know if Barbie can still be considered a strong influence and strong role model through the Dreamhouse series content and things from the 2015 age onward. I know the brand is losing trust in a lot of areas right now, but I don't know about it media-wise. If you give your kids Barbie content, what era is it from? Is it the older stuff or the newer stuff? Let me know in the comments. The tone. Many of the Barbie movies had a very specific tone within them, and the only studio that I've been able to find that replicates this kind of tone has been Studio Ghibli. The movies feel very calming even in higher stakes moments. It took its time to show the landscapes, have reflection, allow everything within the frame to be explored. It was slow paced, but not in a way that felt like it dragged. The animation in many of the cases doesn't hold up, but the landscapes and the art style within them do. Especially the earlier backgrounds. The watercolor look of them was always so beautiful. It felt like stepping into a book illustrated by Claude Monet himself. Even the movies without explicit fantasy stuff like Princess and the Pauper ended up feeling magical because of this pacing and art style. These movies are gentle to watch and they don't overstimulate the way that a lot of other kids' media does. I'm willing to bet that the Barbie Golden Age had something to do with the cottagecore movement. I mean, they literally invented the cottagecore lesbians. Thank you, Diamond Castle. And that whole mood went away with Thumbelina. That's when things started to get less calm and more overstimulating. More quirky in that manic pixie way. And many other clips that I have seen in Barbie compilations seem to follow that same suit, where they become very manic pixie overstimulating. But that's why the classic Barbie movies I think are comfort films, because they were directed in such a way that was very calming. They were so aesthetically pleasant, soothing, and whimsical. And nothing exists quite like they do anymore. I want to see more things like this. Hell, in or out of Barbie. But I don't want the Golden Age to return to its roots. Exactly. The critiques. Barbie movies, like many other movie studios and companies, are very white. People of color have been present within these movies, just not a whole lot and not always in significant roles. Obviously, they have never been a very main character, not until Diamond Castle, but they were sharing the very main character spotlight with Barbie, the white counterpart. And likewise, when I see people talking and discussing these Barbie movies, a lot of them have been from white people or white passing people. This makes me wonder how much these Barbie movies actually had an impact on people of color growing up. Did they idolize Barbie as much as us, people who were born in white sort of households? That's not to say that non-whites didn't watch and enjoy these sorts of Barbie movies, but I imagine they'd have more critiques about them than us white people. They might not hold the franchise to a higher standard just because of how people of color were not always significant within them. This feels difficult to discuss or try and find a solution with when the figurehead of the franchise is a white woman. But I want there to be a way for like a Fairytopia sort of storyline where there's a fairy of color who is able to explore women of color themes within the Fairytopia world, similar to how the original Fairytopia movie was a parallel for people with disabilities. And of course, we want those movies to not have a white savior narrative. Second, I want it to be more queer. Many people on YouTube have looked at these stories through queer lenses, with Princess and the Pauper and the Diamond Castle one being a lot more obvious and resonating with a lot more lesbian people. But wouldn't it be great if it was canon? If there were like two Barbie princesses that got married to each other and became queens together? That's so cool to me. But the issue again is that I genuinely don't know if the Barbie franchise is pro-queer. I don't know what goes on in the Dreamhouse series to know if a lesbian in Barbie's Malibu exists. And I didn't have the time or the energy to research it, let's be real. So if they don't, Barbie needs to step the hell up. But I feel like the overarching problem I have here is that I'm relying too much on the Barbie side of things, and I haven't been able to find anyone else that's been able to replicate that except for one song called Celtic Dream by Ronan Hardiman. To me, for some reason, that song gives the most Barbie vibes, and it's from an Irish step dancing show. So can somebody please give me some recs in the comments? Any kind of book, show, movie, a game. I really want to relive that again somehow with something new, because as much as I love the classics, I'd love something fresh. I mean, but if it isn't broke, why would you fix it?
I'm just like you are. You're just like me. There's somewhere else we'd rather be. Somewhere that's ours.
Sorry. If you do want to watch more fantasy video essays, then I highly suggest that you subscribe. I post them every 2 weeks on a different fantasy topic each time. As soon as I finish rewatching all these Barbie classics, I'll see you in another world.